Kay Perry, Rick Hutchison, that's what I've been saying. You know, there's not much difference between the two. We've seen that time and time in elections. I think many of us saw that in the presidential campaign last time. We saw a lot of the same people pulling the strings. I think we've seen Obama be much more aggressive than we thought he might be, but certainly most of us recognize that it's some higher-ups and some one-worlders that are kind of dictating things. We see that in Texas, even in our leadership and our governor. I just met today with the Texas Association of Manufacturers, and I was told by an individual there on more than one occasion today, we're scared. Our members are scared. I said, that's a pretty big indictment. When you are scared of your elected officials for fear of the influence and the impact that they could have on your business, when you don't walk the line that they set out for you to walk, we've got a real problem in this country. We better wake up and we better make some changes and put some people in office who have the courage and the backbone to stand on those limited principles of our Constitution and govern in accord with that.
MedinaForTexas.com. We're going to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about why they're scared. We need a governor to lead a states' rights resistance under the 10th and 9th Amendment and say no to the carbon tax. We're going to talk about your game plan if the people bust their hind end and get you in as our governor. Debra Medina is our guest in studio. I'm Alex Jones. Debra Medina is our guest. Short segment right now. Coming back with a long segment. We'll take your calls at 1-800-259-9231. 800-259-9231. Debra Medina for Texas. MedinaForTexas.com for governor. Okay, you talk about Texas manufacturers. The whole country's being deindustrialized. We're going to end up like Detroit. I just sent 2 camera guys for 4 days up to Detroit. They said it's worse than what the news is saying. Time magazine had the cover, the fall of Detroit. It's the whole state. Whole blocks in nice areas collapsing, vines growing up, crime everywhere, government taxes only being raised. Texas and the rest of the country, California's already a failed state. People better be scared. And if we can get a real governor in there to implement the 10th and 9th Amendment and say, we're not implementing your global UN carbon tax to foreign banks, we could save this state and set the example to turn the tide. California's been used as the beta test for big government globalism. Texas should be and has the people to be the leaders to reignite the flame of liberty on the long march to our destiny of freedom. Debra Medina, as governor, what are you going to do to stop the globalist agenda?
You're going to nullify all federal law that overreaches the authority of the U.S. Constitution. You know, Thomas Jefferson told the folks that were afraid of the federal government getting into our business. States don't need to worry about that because it is the unquestionable right of the state to determine when the federal government steps outside of the Constitution and to nullify any law. Texas hasn't lifted a finger to nullify anything under Perry's leadership. We have got to start nullifying. I'm traveling around Texas saying, can you imagine what it would be like if we nullified intervention into agriculture and we told farmers and ranchers in Texas, you want to plant it, you want to grow it, you want to sell it, get out there and get after it. What if we told our energy sector, you want to produce, get out there and get after it. We'll keep the federal government off your back. We need the Texas legislature nullifying law, and we need the Texas governor as the head of the executive branch of this great state interposing against federal law enforcement where it oversteps the bounds of the Constitution. Interposition, nullification, the 2 tools available to the state. Long before we talk about secession, we ought to be aggressively using nullification, interposition. We haven't even lifted a finger.
And by the way, Perry says he's against NAFTA and GATT and against the Trans-Texas Corridor when he's the guy always pushing it. He literally goes up there, puts on this act. I've been in the same restaurant with Perry when he's meeting with people. It's all intellectual talk. He's all very graceful. But then when he goes out, he's like, I'm a cowboy. We're going to secede. Woohoo. Then the New York Times says, what do you mean? He goes, oh, that's just a joke. See, instead of having real states' rights and the states asserting its sovereignty, not seceding, instead he bypasses that and goes, we're going to secede, and puts on a fake, good old boy accent. I mean, it's fake as a $3 bill.
He's a very good campaigner. People need to remember that. He's smooth and he's suave and he says what he needs to say to get to get elected. I think people are waking up. I think people all across the state are waking up. The 9/12 groups, the Tea Party groups, are some indication that that's happening. But it started first in that Ron Paul presidential campaign, didn't it?
Now, if the controlled globalist liberal arm of the media, MSNBC, CNBC, CNN, they want Kay Bailey Hutchinson because she's the Bilderberg. She's the Bilderberg steering committee for the U.S.
Okay.
I mean, she runs it. Notice how they'll attack him all day for his death panel, his executions, and maybe doing a bad job with that. Who knows? Because the feds want to come in here and take control. But notice they won't put you on TV, or they should. You would totally destroy Perry. But no, they only want to destroy him enough to get Kay Bailey in. Kay Bailey's the real danger.
I think there's not much difference between the two. They both have allegiance to.
But I'm saying the establishment wants her.
Okay.
I mean, I know you're smart and understand this. I'm just saying, if you watch the news, they don't want Rick Perry. I mean, he's bad, but I mean, she is definitely the heir apparent.
They are both aligned, though, with the same.
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And neither one of them have the best interest of average Texans. Neither one of them have a backbone to support the U.S. Constitution. Neither one of them will advocate for the Texas Constitution. If we're going to be free, and I've been active in politics for a long time, I frequently say, would we know a policy that restored freedom versus one that destroyed it? If it stood up and slapped us in the face, would we recognize the difference? Those nations historically that have been the most free and the most prosperous have had in common private property ownership and gun ownership. If we're going to restore freedom in Texas, we better get back to owning our property and keeping uninfringed our right to keep and
I agree. And the First Amendment. We'll be right back and talk about that.